Alright guys, today we are going to compete at the Grassroots Motorsports Challenge. If you guys have never heard of this event, it is an event that is held annually in Gainesville, Florida, where competitors are challenged to build a car to be as quick as possible in an autocross and a drag race for $2,000. We have competed in this event for 17 years. I've been going since I was 10 years old, and we've basically won the drags every single time we have entered. Now, before everybody gets down in the comments and says, there's no way you can build a fast car for $2,000, I'm going to talk you through some of the stuff to hopefully calm you down a little bit and convince you that it is possible to build a fast car for not a lot of money. Okay, so most people that have a problem with the Grassroots Motorsports Challenge don't read the rules. Many safety items on the car are budget exempt, such as the seat belts, roll bar padding, SFI damper, SFI flex plate or flywheel, and a few other bits and pieces. Other items that are exempt are the brake parts. Any stock replacement brake parts are budget neutral because they want people to be able to stop. Additionally, you get a budget neutral set of tires for your car. We usually use that budget neutral on the drag slicks, and in this case we used it on the front drag tires as well. You're also allowed to recoup some of the money that you spent on the parts to put the car together. For example, the rear wheels on this car we bought with a 35 spline Fox body rear end. We sold the rear end and we essentially have $0 in the rear wheels. Another example is we bought the engine with the LS6 heads that were already on it, and we sold the heads and basically have $0 in the engine. One more example is we bought the car for 300 bucks. It already had a roll bar in the car, and we sold some of the parts that came with it, such as the small block Chevy swap headers and a few other bits and pieces, and we essentially have $0 in the car. That being said, you can't just sell everything down to zero. They only allow you to recoup up to $1,000 off of all of your purchases. You can't recoup to have the parts go into negative values. Meaning if I bought this car for 300 bucks and sold $500 worth of parts, I don't have negative $200 in the budget. All that being said, we are essentially building a car for $3,500 if you take advantage of all the recoup and all of the exemptions. We maxed out all of that on this car, which is why we were able to make it go so fast. Also, your time is budget exempt as well. A lot of you will say, there's no way that you could build this car for that cheap. The labor alone will put you over budget. We have probably around 400 hours in this car. If you were to pay a shop to do that, you're over 20 grand, like that. So I get it. I get why people say there's no way. But when you get 3 engineers together with a milling machine, a lathe, a couple of welders, it's amazing what we can do. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's move on to the competition. The event consists of an autocross, a drag race, and a concours. We typically build our cars to be the best in the drags and marginal in the autocross. We have won the event 2 times in the past with 2 Volkswagen Beetles. This year we chose to bring our 1980 Pontiac Sunbird, which has a aluminum 5.3 in it with truck heads, an S480 turbo, and lots of Chinese parts to make the thing all work. Our goal for this year was to reset the ET record for the drag race, which is currently set at a 951 at 141 miles per hour. Additionally, we would like the car to go an 8 at over 150 miles per hour. Our primary competition in the event is my buddy Jonathan Whitaker, who also has a YouTube channel. I will put his channel linked in the description. It is jwhitfoxaholic on YouTube. He built a RX-7 with a turbo LS. The car has already been in the 10s, and I'm looking forward to see how it does at this event. Additionally, our other competition is my buddy Matt. He built a BMW with a turbo LS as well. Big surprise. He's never really made a solid pass with this car, but it should be capable of mid-9s. The first event that they run is the Autocross. We typically don't do very well here, but I'll show you some clips of that and you can see how a drag car handles in an Autocross. We finished about mid-pack in the Autocross. We ran a 57.9 second run. The fastest time of the day was like 51 seconds, around there somewhere. So we were like 16th in the Autocross. Basically what that means is we needed to cover the person who came in first by around 6 seconds to finish first in the dynamic. This was going to be a difficult task just because most of the cars run in the mid-14s and that's going to be tough to cover. So without further ado, let's move on to my favorite part of the event, which is the drag race. As we worked through the day, we gradually made the car faster and faster. Our first pass, we tried to make a safety run just to hopefully lock up the win. Unfortunately, our competitors both had issues. Jonathan broke his car in the Autocross. He only managed a 14-second pass. Matt On the other hand, he made a 1/8 mile hit, went at 12.3, and then tried to make a 1/4 mile pass, went to 30 pounds of boost, and melted the piston. As you can see in that last clip, my dad had issues with the trans brake not working anymore. Because of this, we had to try to launch the car off of a foot brake. The best way to do this that we have found is to still activate the 2-step, press the brake as hard as you can, floor it, build a little bit of boost, let go of the foot brake and the trans brake at the same time, and this usually results in the best 60-foot times. The issue here is now we are dealing with the strength of the brakes holding the car back while it is on the 2-step. My dad made one attempt at this and he unfortunately rolled through the beams. I was able to easily put it up onto the 2-step in the pits, so it was my turn to jump into the car.
Here's Calvin Nelson all suited up and ready to go at the GRM challenge. Good luck, Calvin.
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome.
As you can see in the first pass, I did the exact same thing as my dad. I rolled through the beams, didn't activate the 2-step, made a pass. Now on the next 2 passes, you're going to notice that I'm very careful about not rolling through the beams. I shallow staged it as shallow as possible and tried to pump the brakes up as much as I possibly could before I got to the line. As you can see, that worked. Unfortunately, in our case, we can launch much harder off of the trans brake. We didn't have that available to us, so we tried to turn up the power down track, but we were seeing pretty excessive manifold air temps just because we have no intercooler on this car. We were seeing close to 250 degrees Fahrenheit in the manifold. We tried throwing a little bit of timing at it as well. I'll show you how it worked out. So the last pass, we broke the 150, but we didn't get into the 8s. It was kind of a disappointment, but I was honestly really happy. To go that fast on a $2,000 budget is really hard. The dew was starting to set in on the track and it was starting to get a little squirrely, but I had to drive through it. It wasn't too nerve-wracking, but a lot of people on the starting line were biting their teeth. I don't really think if the track was there, we would have gotten an 8, but we probably would have gotten around a 903. So we at least got our 150 mile per hour trap speed, but we didn't get the 8. We're just gonna have to try and do it next year. The next event in the competition was the Concours. We typically do pretty decent in the Concours. A lot of people don't understand the whole point of it. They try and make their car all shiny and detail it to the nth degree. What it's really about is the innovation and execution of the car. So if you have a dozen cool things that you did to try and do it for as cheap as possible, that's going to get you more points than really shiny paint and a concourse level detail job. So the next clip I'm going to play you is my concourse presentation in full. Not trying to be arrogant, but I hope some of the other competitors in the event can watch our presentation and maybe get a little bit of tips and tricks out of it. All right, good to go?
And just a reminder, they have 3 minutes to present their car. We may award a minute of bonus time if you guys want.
All right.
Go ahead and start the timer now.
All right, what we have here is a engine from a 2010 Chevy truck, heads off an earlier model truck, camshaft out of a Corvette, turbo from a tractor trailer, transmission from a 70s truck, rear end out of a 90s Ford Explorer, a bunch of flea market goodies, some Chinese parts, all in a 1980 Pontiac Sunbird. So innovation doesn't happen overnight. This car is the culmination of 17 years of participation in this event. Every year we learn how to do something cheaper and better. So how do you build a fast car for cheap? One good way to build a fast car for cheap is to buy from people that don't know how to sell stuff. The car is a perfect example of that. The previous owner didn't know how to spell Pontiac, and therefore his ad got no attention, and my dad was able to because he searched for misspelled car names, he was able to swoop in and get it for a good deal. Another way to build a fast car for cheap is buy parts that nobody wants. Good place to look for those is at the junkyard. So the turbo was sitting in a pile of turbos, and they were taken off of tractor trailers because they needed to be replaced. We found one that had minimal shaft play, and here it is. Another good example is the flex fuel sensor, which allows us to run ethanol on the car and make more horsepower. Another good way to build a fast car for cheap is to be in the right place at the right time. We chose to do a compressor upgrade on the turbo, and there were only 3 kits available on eBay Motors. They sold out in minutes. We were one of the few people to get one, and that is probably one of the keys to our success. We go to 9 flea markets a year. We are usually one of the first people there and one of the last to leave, because a lot of times you can get a good deal at the end of the day. A lot of times you can get a good deal at the start of the day. Another good way to build a fast car for cheap is to use your brain. Good example of this is we repurposed our windshield washer canister and pump to, rather than spray methanol onto the windshield, we're spraying methanol into the turbo. This decreases the manifold air temps and makes more horsepower. Another good way to build a fast car for cheap is to take a risk. In this case, we used some Chinese injectors that don't really have the best reputation. I made a home-built test rig to test the injectors, and we found that they flowed decent. So far, they've been reliable. Another good way to build a fast car for cheap is to get the most out of the parts that you have. You'll notice lots of air ducting in the front.
Okay, and we're at 3 minutes. Judges, do you want one more minute?
Sure.
You notice the air ducting in the front. That helps direct air into the turbo and bring in cooler air and make more horsepower. So why is this car so innovative? It's so innovative because we've taken all of these strategies and combined them into one car. Execution. When I think of execution, the best metric for that is how the car performed. Last night we reset the ET record for the drags, and we did fairly decent in the autocross, a 57-second autocross time, which gave us around 4th in the dynamic score. Pretty good for an 80s crap can, using parts from Max Speeding Rods, eBay Motors, prepared with our CRC products, and assembled using our Miller welders. Now, if only we could get a larger fuel tank. Just don't know where we could find one of them. Any questions?
What did you run in the quarter?
A 906 at 150. Yep.
Judges, any last questions? Okay. Feel free to take another second to look at the car. Make sure you write down the car number next to your score.
Thanks. Good seeing you.
You too.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So the concourse went very well for us. We scored a 21.5 out of 25. The highest scoring team scored a 22. We placed 3rd in the concours, and that put us at 5th overall. We were very happy with how the event went. The only minor disappointment was not getting the 8 in the drags, of course. But overall, we had such a good time. So many people came up to us and thanked us for making the videos, and to that I just have to say thank you. Some of our most diehard fans participated at this event, and it was really refreshing to actually go to an event, not blow anything up, and just overall have a really fun time. I've been kind of down on the challenge for a while. Frankly, there have been years where I thought it was a complete waste of our time and I didn't really want to participate. But after this year, I'm fired up. We're going to do this again, and we're going to go even faster. Please! Ah! Come on!